Hey guys, welcome back to NFL Trading Room. Today we've got another fun video for you. We're going to be going over some offseason plans for some AFC teams. We're going to do all 16 AFC teams. We're going to do an NFC edition later, probably next week. But we're just going to go through, highlight what are some positional needs, their top three positional needs, and then look at some free agent targets. And then we're going to do a 3-round mock draft attacking those position groups and how I would attack the board in those situations. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to be starting with the AFC North, and with these, we're going to go in order of how the division finished. So we're going to start with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So for me, their three biggest positional needs are quarterback, receiver, and safety. They don't have to be in any particular order, but quarterback, receiver, and safety are the three biggest position needs to me. Could certainly argue a couple other positions like linebacker. You could argue tackle. And you could argue maybe interior defensive line, depending on what Cam Hayward does, if he retires or not. So definitely some arguments you could make, but I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to be back. At the recording of this video, the Steelers just hired Mike McCarthy as their head coach, so maybe could see a reunion there, but I'm not so sure. So I do think they're going to roll with a new quarterback in 2026. And then receivers, Calvin Austin is a free agent this offseason, so we'll see if they bring him back. Of course, you have DK Metcalf, but not a whole lot else in that receiver room. Roman Wilson certainly hasn't panned out as to what the Steelers hoped he would. And then safety, they kind of had a mix of different backgrounds of safeties. They had Kyle Duggar, Chuck Clark, Jabril Peppers, Deshaun Elliott all getting snaps in 2025. So looking for some more stability there, I think. Some free agency targets, we'll go ahead and get into that. They do have $46 million in cap space. For me, a couple of the quarterback targets you could look at, if you want to go more of the starter route, you could look at a guy like Malik Willis from the Packers. He's going to be a guy that is probably going to command probably $20 million a year. I would probably guess on like a 2-year, $40 million deal, something like that. And then if you want to go more the veteran, backup route or a guy that could start maybe half the season, Tyrod Taylor's never a bad option. Could also look at a guy like Joe Flacco, and he could just complete the roundabout of the AFC North there if you want. A couple of the receivers I would look at from the Colts, Alec Pierce, really, really good deep threat. He's going to get a lot more money than I think a lot of people expect. I would guess he's going to get in the ballpark of $20 million a year, probably on like a 4-year, $80 million deal, something like that. Can really stretch the field vertically, big receiver, has continued to improve in all facets of his game. I'm really excited to see how he continues to develop. And then you look at some of the other options. Seahawks wide receiver Rashid Shaheed, obviously we know he's electric in the return game, but he's continued to improve his receiver skill set, become a much more refined route runner. Obviously elite deep threat, crazy speed down the field. And then a guy like Romeo Dobbs, I think, could be a really nice Z with DK Metcalf at the X, able to run any route in the book as long as he can stay healthy. And he did this past year, which was awesome to see. Could be a really, really nice wide receiver too. Then looking at the safety position, a couple of the guys that I marked down, Patriots safety Jalen Hawkins has really, really played well in 2025 in that Mike Vrabel defense. And then a guy like Jaquan Brisker from the Bears, a young player who we'll see if the Bears bring him back or not, but I think he's a nice player. Now jumping into my 3-round mock draft for them. First round, 21st overall, I have them going Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson. Again, this is specifically attacking the three position needs that I list. So, this kind of rules out going just straight up best player available at the pick. So just keep that in mind as well. And I just thought with the way the board fell, Ty Simpson at 21st overall, I think is still a solid pick. Hopefully you get a guy like Tyrod Taylor who can start, maybe that entire first year, and let Ty Simpson sit a year and continue to learn and develop. I really like Ty Simpson when he's protected well. Under pressure, that's where you see a lot of the cracks in the armor. But moving on, second round, 53rd overall, I think this is a sprint to card in type of pick. Oregon safety Dylan Thieneman. Really, really rangy over the top, excellent coverage safety, and single high, can play split safety, can play in the box, he can play anywhere. And then in the third round at 76th overall, I had them going with Connecticut receiver Skylar Bell. Skylar Bell, really, really fun receiver. He's doing awesome things at the Shrine Bowl. in some of these early practice days. So really, really nice player on tape, smooth hips, able to transition in and out of his route breaks very easily. And I think that he's that separator that the Steelers are looking for. You can play him at the Z, you can play him at the slot. He fills both of those roles for them. And moving on to the Ravens, for me, their biggest three positional needs are interior offensive line, specifically guard, edge, and wide receiver. They've got $23 million in cap space to spend in free agency. So some of the targets that I was looking at, you look at a guy like David Edwards, a guard from the Bills, may command more than what they're willing to give, especially with that cap space. But as we all know, these teams can create cap space out of thin air. You have the Browns guard, Tevin Jenkins, has continued to develop into a pretty nice player. The Packers, Sean Ryan, he's played some guard, played a lot of center this past year. He's a versatile guy that I think can be a useful piece on an offensive line. Bengals guard Dalton Reisner is a guy that I kind of sit and wonder every offseason, why is he not getting a longer-term deal? Just continued to improve. Interior offensive line is important for them because I think they've got to bring Tyler Linderbaum back, but there's a lot of speculation as to why they haven't extended him yet. So never know with that situation. And then Daniel Faalele at right guard has been maybe the worst right guard in football. Anthony Bradford probably had that title, but he played decently well down the stretch in those last couple of games. But Daniel Faalele was not good at right guard for the Ravens in 2025 or really any time before that. I mean, you've got to replace that position going forward. Getting into some of the edge rushers, this Ravens team could not get after the passer. They traded for Draymond Jones from the Titans at the trade deadline, and he was probably their best pass rusher to close the season. Mike Green didn't do a whole lot. Kyle Van Noy's getting up there in age, and you look at their pressure rates or pass rush win rates, it's just not very good. So a couple of the guys that I looked at, Bengals edge Joseph Osai has been a young guy that's continued to develop. Has diversified his pass rush arsenal. Raiders edge Malcolm Kuntz is a guy that a couple years ago had a really, really nice season and was probably looking forward to a big payday, but he's had some injuries as of late. If he can get back to that level, I believe it was 2023 when he had that breakout season. If he can get back to that level, he can be a really nice edge two-piece for a defense. And then Cowboys edge Dante Fowler Jr. Many labeled him as a first-round bust, and certainly he hasn't lived up to that first-round, I believe it was third overall pedigree when he was drafted. However, he's been a very nice veteran pass rusher in the last few years, so that'd be a nice budget pickup if you want to say like maybe a 2-year, $20 million deal, something like that. I think could bring him over. Then you look at the wide receiver room. This Ravens team has patchworked the receiver room around Zay Flowers. Or at least tried to. Rashad Bateman hasn't been what many have expected him to be. And Zay Flowers is a nice piece, but I think they need that true X, maybe not X type, but that guy that can win on the outside. 49ers wide receiver Kendrick Bourne is certainly a guy that can play in the slot. I think he can also play outside. He's got the size. Doesn't have necessarily the athletic juice, but he's more than capable of running a dig over the middle. He's not afraid of running over the middle of the field. He can run the comeback. He can run curl, slants, you name it, he can run it. And then Vikings wide receiver Jalen Naylor has been a nice wide receiver 3 for the Vikings. Really nice player. Doesn't have that X size, but I think he can play the Z, and when on the outside has continued to develop as a route runner. And getting into their first 3 picks, in the first round at 14th overall, I went with Penn State guard Olai Vavenga-Owane. He's one of my guys, great in pass protection, mauler in the run game. Really, really like him. Second round, 45th overall, went with Missouri edge Zion Young. He was a guy that I wasn't as high on in the summer, but dove into his tape more recently for 2025, and I liked the growth that I see from him. He's got the length. He's a great run defender, developing as a pass rusher, but saw encouraging signs there. And then in the third round at 80th overall, Ole Miss wide receiver Dazon Stribling has kind of skyrocketed in the draft community in recent months. He's a guy that could play that big slot role, could also play on the outside. I think he's got the vertical juice to separate vertically, so I think he's a player to keep your eye on, especially on day 2. Now going with the Cincinnati Bengals, the biggest position needs to me, interior offensive line, safety, and interior defensive line. Could argue for some other stuff, maybe tackle, but Orlando Brown Jr., while I'm not a fan of the technique or anything like that, He's just so big that it's hard for edge rushers to really win through his chest or win the corner on him with his arm length. And then Amarius Mims, I still believe in him as a young tackle. Liked him coming out of college, so still believe in him long term. But free agency, they've got 55 million in cap space. I believe this is the most they've had in cap space in quite a while. And of course, going with this, we're not mocking any re-signings that haven't taken place yet, so that could certainly change the cap space. And also, I'm trying not to list the same free agents for every need or draft the same guys, but of course, we're going to have some overlap. But getting into the Bengals free agency, Elijah Vera Tucker, the Jets guard, is a guy I would look at, as well as Titans guard Kevin Zeitler. Zeitler is probably a one-year mercenary at this point in his career, but still a solid player at right guard. Then looking at some of the safeties, Chiefs safety Brian Cook may be one of the best safeties in this free agency class. The Chiefs, when we'll get to the Chiefs and their cap situation, almost certainly cannot bring him back, so he will hit the market. We mentioned it for the Steelers, Jaquan Brisker from the Bears. And then a guy that I would keep an eye on for the Bengals is Ravens safety Alohi Gilman. Had a nice career with the Chargers. I believe was traded over around the same time as Odafe Owe. He might have actually been in that trade, going from LA to Baltimore, but has developed into a really nice player on the back end. Then looking at some of the interior defensive linemen, I really like Atlanta Falcons interior D lineman David Onyemata. He's a guy that's played most of his career in the NFC South, with both the Saints and the Falcons. But really like his ability to get after the passer and also stop the run. First three picks for them, first round, 10th overall, I went with Florida interior defensive lineman Caleb Banks. Banks has been a guy that I've been high on since the summer. Of course, he missed a lot of 2025 with an injury, but you can't teach 6'6", 330 with that type of athletic explosion and power with his arm length. Second round, 41st overall, I went with Toledo safety Emmanuel McNeil Warren. McNeil Warren, super athletic on the back end, great size, always seems to force a turnover in just about every game that you watch, so that's awesome. And then third round, 72nd overall, Texas A&M guard Chase Pasantis. I would take him higher than this third round, and he'll be a consistent theme throughout this list, probably in that third round range, but super good in pass protection, great hands, great base, athletic. He's a former tackle, so you see some of that tackle background in some of his play, but developing as a run blocker. But job number one for this is to protect Joe Burrow, and Chase Pasantis would do that at left guard. Now jumping into the Cleveland Browns, for me, their three biggest positional needs are receiver, offensive tackle, and interior offensive line. Quarterback is obviously the biggest need for this team, but especially in this offseason, I don't see a realistic fix with where they're slotted at in the draft. Especially with Dante Moore going back to school for his senior year, or redshirt junior year, sorry. But you look at free agency, they've got negative $18 million in cap space, mostly because of that Deshaun Watson deal. Now that I think they'll cut him, not sure how much money they'll save from that, and they'll probably designate it as a post-June 1st cut, I would assume, to have some of the penalties drop down. But then you look at their draft position. I don't think Ty Simpson's going at 6th overall, and I don't think Ty Simpson's probably going to make it to 24th overall. So just a really, really tough board and free agency for the Browns to navigate with that quarterback room. But looking at free agency targets for me, Texans wide receiver Christian Kirk I think would be a solid, cheaper option. And then Eagles receiver Jahan Dotson I think would be a nice option. He's a guy that's been the wide receiver 3 for Philly for a couple years. Had some promising moments in Washington, former first-round pick. And I think he's a guy that's not going to command a whole lot, so adding him to that room I think could bring them some juice. And then I chose to go some budget shopping at offensive tackle. So Vidarian Lowe has been a guy that's gotten a little bit of buzz for the Patriots. Versatile offensive tackle, can be a swing guy. And then Titans offensive tackle Oli Udoh, I know as a Titans fan, he's been a guy that filled in for J.C. Latham some this past season, and played pretty well, all things considered. And then you look at some of the interior offensive linemen. I think Bengals guard Dalton Reisner, I think he should get a longer-term deal as I've described, but I could see him taking another one-year deal type of thing. But Of course, quarterback options, even though they're not the top three position needs because of how the offseason is shaped for the Browns, both in cap space and their draft position. Maybe taking a guy like Tyrod Taylor or retreading with Joe Flacco could be an option. But their first three picks for me, first round, sixth overall, I went with Ohio State wide receiver Carnell Tate. You keep him in Ohio. That's a great wide receiver, I think, future wide receiver one, and that would be much needed for the Browns. First round, 24th overall, I went with Arizona State offensive tackle Max Ihenokor. Ihenokor is a guy that I've really grown to like over the fall as the season wore on. Great length, 6'6", 330 pounds, excellent in pass protection. Still developing as a run blocker. You don't really see that drive power, but he's so good in pass protection. And I think I'm out on an island having him in the first round conversation, but I really like Ihenokor. Second round, 39th overall, I went with Oregon guard Emmanuel Pregnon. Pregnon transferred over from USC. And really, really played well for the Ducks, especially down the season or down the stretch of the season. And I think Pregnon fills that left guard role that Joel Patonio has held for so long for the Browns. Now jumping into the AFC East with the New England Patriots, three biggest position needs for me: interior offensive line, edge, and wide receiver. They've got a decent amount of money in cap space, around $38 million. Some of the targets for me: Bills guard David Edwards, Texans guard Ed Ingram. He's been a guy that's played pretty well for Houston after being pretty bad in Minnesota. And then I've mentioned it before, Packers utility interior offensive lineman Sean Ryan, I think is going to be a solid pickup for whoever he goes to. I think this could be a potential landing spot for Cowboys wide receiver George Pickens. I think in all likelihood he's back with the Cowboys, but he is listed as a free agent, so you never know. And I think Patriots not only have the money to pay George Pickens, but they also have the need for that more X receiver. And I've been impressed with how the Patriots receiver core has played, but I think they still need that, dominant number one receiver. And George Pickens is that to me. Another guy that's kind of more of that depth piece, maybe in that Mac Hollins role that the Patriots have used this year, is Noah Brown from the Commanders. Solid player there. And then a couple of the edge rushers that I looked at: Chargers edge Odafe Owe, and Seahawks edge Boye Mafe are two guys that can really get after the passer. Then their first three picks for me: first round, 30th overall, I went with Louisville wide receiver Chris Bell. Insanely explosive player, coming off that torn ACL, but I think he's going to get back to form. Second round, 62nd overall, UCF edge Malachi Lawrence. This is the guy that's got great length, is explosive, and has shown the development as a pass rusher as well. Third round, 94th overall, I went with Boise State offensive tackle Cage Casey. In this scenario, we're moving him to guard, probably at that left guard position. My thinking with this interior is you probably move Jared Wilson, who has started at left guard for the Patriots this season, was a center at Georgia in 2024, so you move him to center, and then you can play Cage Casey at left guard. Next up, the Buffalo Bills. Three biggest position needs for me. Wide receiver is number one. Safety and edge, could also argue for linebacker, but I chose to go wide receiver, safety, and edge. Now, they've got a negative $11 million in cap space, so they're going to have to make some restructures, make some cuts to be able to get under the cap. Some guys that I looked at: Vikings wide receiver Jalen Naylor and 49ers wide receiver Kendrick Bourne could be some solid options. A couple of the safeties that I looked at: Giant safety Dane Belton has been a young guy that's really continued to improve on the back end for the Giants. And then Steelers safety Chuck Clark, I think, was the Steelers' best safety in 2025. So bring him over. He can play single high, he can play split safety, and in the box, he's a versatile player. A couple of the edge players that I looked at: Jets edge Michael Clemens, solid run defender, more of that bigger edge that the Bills seem to like. And the Bears edge Dominique Robinson is kind of similar to him. First three picks for them: first round, 26th overall, I went with Texas A&M wide receiver KC Concepcion. He's a guy that was more of a gadget player at NC State, but once he got to Texas A&M in 2025, was able to show his full wide receiver skill set, can win vertically, can run any route in the route tree, super explosive player. That's definitely something that the Bills need, is that outside separator receiver. KC Concepcion, even though he's 5'11", 190, can definitely play the Z position with Khalil Shakir there in the slot. Second round, 60th overall, I went with another of those bigger edge rushers. That's USC edge Anthony Lucas. Anthony Lucas was a guy I really liked in summer scouting. Didn't necessarily come all together for him in his senior season, but great length, nice size, really nice athlete at his size, explosive player, plays with power. And I think if he hits his ceiling, this would be a steal for them in the second round. And then in the third round, 91st overall, Arizona safety Genesis Smith. Smith may be the rangiest free safety in this class, and I think that's certainly something that the Bills could use on the back end. Depending on what coach they hire, we'll see, what defensive scheme they want to implement. But I think Genesis Smith is probably, for me, the rangiest safety. It's either him or Dylan Thieneman in this class. Next up, the Miami Dolphins. Three biggest needs for me: cornerback, wide receiver, and interior offensive line. Could certainly argue quarterback. Tua got benched to close the season. I don't think Quinn Ewers is the answer, but the problem is they have negative $22 million in cap space. So not a whole lot to work with there. We'll see what they restructure, what kind of cuts they make. And then you've got a new regime coming in there with the new GM from the Packers and Jeff Hafley, the Packers defense coordinator. So we'll see what changes in roster construction and scheme they make. But some free agency targets for me, could look at a guy like Bills cornerback Tre'Davious White on a 1-year deal type of thing. Is a veteran at this point, but played well in 2025, all things considered. Rams cornerback Kobe Durant is another guy that's a solid player. And then Steelers cornerback Asante Samuel Jr. was a guy that waited to sign pretty late into the 2025 season. And I thought Miami would have been a good landing spot for him then. I think it could be a nice 1-year deal landing spot for him now. And then looking at receiver, just looking at some of the budget guys, could take a swing on a guy like Cowboys wide receiver Jalen Tolbert. Hasn't necessarily panned out in the league, but I still think he's got some athletic traits and some upside. Probably on just like a 1-year deal for maybe 2 to 3 million. So we'll see how that plays out. And then on the interior offensive line, I chose to go with an interesting option. Falcons guard / tackle Elijah Wilkinson. He's played all over the place in his career. He's played left tackle, right tackle, both guard positions. Don't think he's played center, but he's played everywhere besides center on the offensive line. Played right tackle for the Falcons this year, mostly played left guard in the past, and I think slots perfectly at left guard. Jonas Sinai was one of the worst offensive linemen in the league in 2025. I know he was a rookie, but it was really bad. So you can play Wilkinson at left guard and maybe let Sinai sit a year to develop. Then, of course, we have to talk about quarterback, just some budget options like a guy like Tyrod Taylor, Joe Flacco, if they want to bring in a guy that can just survive for a year before they get their guy later, or they could just throw Tua back out there. We'll just have to wait and see. First 3 picks for them, first round, 11th overall. Got to go with Tennessee cornerback Jermon McCoy. To me, he's a top 5 player in this class, even with the injury. I think he'll be healthy by the time the combine rolls around, and just excellent in all phases of playing the cornerback position. Second round, 43rd overall, went with another Tennessee guy, Tennessee wide receiver Chris Brazzell the second. Brazzell is a guy it seems the draft community has kind of gone up and down on. Some guys are higher on him, some guys are lower on him. I'm pretty high on him. You don't see many 6'5" guys be able to move like that. And getting him at 43rd overall, I think, is a nice grab. Third round, 75th overall. Here he is again, Texas A&M guard Chase Basantis. Just automatic for me if he's on the board in the third round for one of these teams that needs a guard. Now going with the New York Jets. For me, 3 biggest needs: linebacker, safety, and edge. Obviously, quarterback's one, but this is a similar situation to the Browns. Not in terms of cap space, but in terms of draft position. So could certainly, if you're the Jets, look at a guy like Malik Willis and certainly bring him over. Still paying Justin Fields $20 million. We'll see if he sticks around on the roster. But like I mentioned, they have $87 million in cap space. So some of the guys they could target: Devin Lloyd, Jaguars linebacker, really solid player, and Browns linebacker Devin Bush broke out in 2025. He was really good for the Browns defense. A couple of the safeties that I marked down: Rams safety Cameron Curl can play both in the box and in single high alignments. And then Broncos safety PJ Locke, the interception man, that was certainly not controversial from the divisional round. But yeah, still a solid player outside of the controversial interception in that divisional round against Buffalo. But would be a solid player here for the Jets. A couple of the edge rushers that I looked at, this is certainly a team that can afford Trey Hendrickson if the Bengals choose not to bring him back. And then Lions edge Al-Quadin Muhammad, while he is an older player, was awesome in 2025. I believe he had 12 sacks on the year, had a great pressure rate, consistently got after the quarterback, so could certainly look there. And then if they want to go with a budget guy at quarterback, Joe Flacco could be filled in for any of these teams looking at a budget quarterback. First three picks, again, it's their first three picks, not first three rounds, and they have 2 first rounders. So first round, second overall, went with Miami edge rusher Reuben Bain Jr. Just one of the, I think easily one of the 3 best players in this class, no matter what board you're talking about. First round, 16th overall, Georgia linebacker C.J. Allen. This was a bit higher than I would be comfortable taking him, but just with the way the board fell, this is the route I decided to go. Second round, 33rd overall, Oregon safety Dylan Thieneman. Really good safety at the top of the second round. I think he's an easy plug and play on day one. Quick break in the video. If you guys wouldn't mind to go down below, drop a like, drop a comment, make sure you subscribe to the channel. That would just let us know that you're enjoying the content. We'll continue to bring content like this to you throughout the draft season. Let's get back into the video. Now moving on to the AFC South with the Jacksonville Jaguars. 3 biggest needs for me: safety, interior defensive line, and interior offensive line. They got negative $7 million in cap space, so they'll have to work some magic with some restructures and cuts. Giant safety, Dane Belton is a guy that I've mentioned. Seahawks safety Kobe Bryant is a guy that could be a nice player. Was a cornerback coming out of Kansas, I believe it was. Transitioned to safety and has been a nice player in that Mike McDonald defense. Texans interior defensive lineman Tim Settle has been a guy that's just continued to get better and better. Can get after the passer. He's stout enough against the run. And then looking at the interior, could look at guard and center. Panthers guard Brady Christensen. He only played 5 games in 2025, but he played pretty well, and he's got the size and length to be able to play at the guard position. So could throw a 1-year deal at him and see what happens there. 49ers center Matt Hennessy played well in spurts for the 49ers, previously played for the Falcons. Could be a nice option on a budget at the center position. First 3 picks for the Jaguars. Second round, 56 overall, Auburn center Connor Lew. Coming off the ACL tear, but Connor Lew was a top 20 player for me in the summer. Still have to get back around to his 2025 tape to see where he slots in. Probably going to slot in somewhere on day 2 on my board, but really, really good athlete. Very accurate blocker at the second level. Third round, 81st overall, I went with Florida State interior defensive lineman Darrell Jackson Jr. Really inconsistent, but you don't find 6'6" and nearly 340 pounds very often, especially with that type of arm length. And his highs are really high, so if you can ever get him to play more consistent in that facets, he could be a really nice player. Third round, 88th overall, went with Penn State safety Zakeem Wheatley. Versatile safety that can play deep, can play in the box, could even play some nickel in a pinch. Really like his overall skill set. Next up, the Houston Texans. 3 biggest needs for me: center, offensive tackle, and safety. They've got $3 million in cap space, so we'll see what magic they work to create some more. Packers offensive tackle Darian Kennard has always been an intriguing player to me. Would be really interested to see him get a starting option, especially here with the Texans. You have him on one side, and then Ariante Ursary on the left side. Titans offensive tackle Oli Udoh is a guy that I've mentioned. Played pretty well at right tackle, and I want my Titans to bring him back as a depth option as a swing tackle, but we'll see what happens there. Panthers center Cade Mays has been a guy that was a tackle in college at Tennessee, was also a guard at Georgia before he transferred to Tennessee. Played some guard in the NFL, but has now moved to center and played pretty well, all things considered, for that Panthers offensive line. And then Steelers safety Chuck Clark has been a guy that I continue to look at. Jalen Petrie was certainly a safety early in his career, but has been a nickel defender, especially this year for the Texans. A really, really nice player. And then you've got Kalen Bullock, who's more of that free safety option. So Chuck Clark is a guy that can play in the box. Could also play some split safety with Kalen Bullock as well in that D'Amico Ryans defense. And then first 3 picks for me: first round, 28th overall. Again, it's Arizona State offensive tackle Maxi Hennecore. Really love him at that right tackle position. Second round, 38th overall, chose to go with LSU safety AJ Halsey. He's more of that box safety role that I mentioned with Kalen Bullock, is more of the single high free safety. And then second round, 59th overall, Again, Auburn center Connor Lew. Any of these teams that need a center, Connor Lew is the guy that I'm going after. Maybe another guy would be Logan Jones, but Connor Lew, really, really nice player. If he can come back healthy, really, really excited to see what his NFL future looks like. Next, the Indianapolis Colts. Three biggest needs for me: linebacker, edge, and safety. Certainly could talk about quarterback. I think they'll bring Daniel Jones back, and he played well, especially the first year in that Shane Steichen offense. I think they'll bring him back. But then some other targets at the positions I mentioned. Quay Walker from the Packers certainly has been a polarizing player for Packers fans. Some like him, some don't. But I think it's pretty undeniable the steps that he's taken. Of course, he's not at some Pro Bowl or All Pro level yet, but the improvement that he's taken has been undeniable. Chiefs linebacker Leo Chenal is a guy that I would mark down for any linebacker needy team. Really loved him out of Wisconsin and has developed into a really, really nice player. Then looking at some edge rushers, I mentioned him before, but Bengals edge Joseph Osai I think would be a nice signing here. Packers edge Kingsley Enagbare is a guy that's continued to get better. Would like to see him get an increased role here with the Colts. Couple of the safeties, again, it's Bears safety Jaquan Brisker, but Arizona safety Jalen Thompson is another guy that I would keep an eye on here. First three picks for them, second round, 47th overall, went with USC edge Anthony Lucas. I think he fits the bill of what they look for in that edge build. Leatu Latu has continued to improve. Really liked him coming out of UCLA. And you can have Anthony Lucas as more of that 5 tech. Could even move into the interior on passing downs. So could be a versatile player for them. Third round, 78th overall is Akee Wheatley. Really like his safety tape. And then fourth round, 113th overall, I went with Indiana linebacker Aiden Fisher. I think he'll go higher than this. He's a guy that coming into the year, people probably thought would either go 6th round, maybe even undrafted. But I think he's improved as an athlete, which you don't see too often. And I think he's vaulted himself into the day 2 conversation. Was still on the board in the 4th round, so I'm going to take him there. But really, really, really like Aiden Fisher, the linebacker out of Indiana. Next up, my Tennessee Titans. Three biggest needs are undeniable. It's edge, receiver, and cornerback. However you want to order that, that's the top 3 needs, bar none. They've got the most cap space in the NFL at about $101 million. Obviously swinging big on a lot of these free agents. You've got Bengals edge Trey Hendrickson if the Bengals don't bring him back. Seahawks edge Boye Mafe. The Titans just need anyone that can get after the passer. So I don't care if they sign 5 edge rushers this class. They've got to get somebody that can get after the passer. A couple of the receivers I marked down. Colts wide receiver Alec Pierce has been a guy that a lot of us Titans fans have talked about as a potential target. Packers receiver Romeo Doubs is a guy that can really separate as the Z receiver. You can have Alec Eilmaner as the X and Chim Dike in the slot. Seahawks receiver Rashid Shaheed is another guy that we've mentioned can stretch the field vertically. A guy that I think makes a lot of sense for the Titans, especially with the hiring of Robert Saleh, is 49ers wide receiver Jawan Jennings. I don't think the 49ers are bringing him back. He's from the Nashville area, the Middle Tennessee area, so that makes a lot of sense, and played at his college ball at Tennessee. So I think a lot of that makes a lot of sense. I think the stars are aligning there for a potential Jawan Jennings return to the state of Tennessee. A couple of the corners that I marked down, Chiefs cornerback Jalen Watson is a guy that I really like. Saints cornerback Alontae Taylor, the Titans saw that firsthand. He had a great game against the Titans in, I believe, week 16, or it was either week 16 or week 17 of the 2025 season. And then Raiders cornerback Eric Stokes has been a guy that after he's left Green Bay has developed into a solid corner for the Raiders, so I think he'd be a nice target for the Titans in free agency. First 3 picks for me, first round, 4th overall, Reuben Bain Jr. from Miami. If he's on the board for Robert Saleh, I think Robert Saleh is going to pound the table for him, so love that fit with the Titans. Second round, 35th overall, I went with San Diego State cornerback Chris Johnson. You get another Chris Johnson coming to Tennessee, this time at cornerback. But Chris Johnson's a really, really fun player, really good size for a boundary corner, and has the athletic traits. Third round, 66th overall, went with Georgia State wide receiver Ted Hurst. This is, along with Olaiva Venga Owane, Ted Hurst is probably my biggest summer scouting hit. for the 2026 NFL Draft. Really liked him in the summer, and a lot of people have come around on him. Had a great season in 2025. Now to the last division, the AFC West. The Denver Broncos, for me, three biggest needs: tight end, running back, and safety. Tight end is interesting because to me, they're looking for more of that joker role that Sean Payton always likes to use. You could find that in the tight end position. You could find that in a big slot, like a guy that we've mentioned, Deshaun Stribling from Ole Miss could be a guy that could fill that joker role. But tight end, running back, and safety for me are the three biggest needs. Free agency targets, they've got $35 million in cap space, so they've got money to spend. Browns tight end David Njoku is the guy that I continue to like, even with some of the injuries that have popped up for him throughout his career. And then more of that joker mold is Ravens tight end Isaiah Likely, really, really good athlete, has just kind of been pigeonholed behind Mark Andrews for a lot of his career. Then looking at the running backs, Jets running back Breece Hall, I think would be an awesome fit in a Sean Payton offense, as well as Jaguars running back Travis Etienne. So either one of those would be awesome to watch in a Sean Payton offense. And then you've got R.J. Harvey as the second fiddle, which he brings a lot of juice, especially as a pass catcher. So that would be a really, really fun running back room to watch with either Breece Hall or Travis Etienne. Of course, they won't sign both of them, but two really good options. And then for safety, two guys we've mentioned, Rams safety Cameron Curl and Patriots safety Jalen Hawkins, I think would fit really nicely next to Hufanga, the other safety there for Denver. First three picks for them, first round, 31st overall. In my mocks that I've been doing, Kenyon Sadiq has fallen down the board, and so this would have been like a sprint the card in pick for Denver. He was not on the board in this exercise, so I went with Oregon safety Dylan Thieneman. We've talked about him. Second round, 63rd overall. This is more of that joker role to me. NC State tight end Justin Jolly. It's either Jolly or Jolie, not quite sure how you pronounce the last name, either of the two. But really good size. He was at UConn, was more of that, flex tight end body, but he's bulked up to around 6'3", 255. But he's still got the athletic traits to fill that joker role that Sean Payton's looking for. Third round, 95th overall. The running back board wasn't great at this position, but I really like Arkansas running back Mike Washington Jr. He's been a guy that's really grown on me. He's more of that bigger back, style player, more physical runner. I think that would pair very nicely with R.J. Harvey. Next up, the Los Angeles Chargers. Three biggest needs for me: guard, center, interior defensive line. You've got your tackles as long as they can stay healthy in Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt. But man, the interior was tough to watch, especially that Patriots game. That was awful performance for the Chargers offensive line. Mekhi Becton was the guy that played great in Philadelphia, got his bag with the Chargers, and it did not go well. But good news for them, they have $86 million in cap space, so they've got a ton of money to spend. Of course, they can bring back guys like Odafe Owe, Khalil Mack, guys like that. But a couple of guys I would target: Jets guard Elijah Vera Tucker, as long as he can stay healthy, great guard. Browns guard Tevin Jenkins. And then Ravens center Tyler Linderbaum. I think the Ravens got to bring him back, but as long as he's on the free agent board, I'm going to fill him in for a position like this. Would be worlds better than Bradley Bozeman. And then again, Packers center / guard Sean Ryan, just that utility piece on the interior. And then a couple of the interior defensive linemen I looked at: Browns interior defensive lineman Shelby Harris, with the Browns, but has played in the AFC West before, played with the Broncos, played with the Raiders. Definitely up there in the latter stages of his career, but still a solid player. And then Titans interior defensive lineman Sebastian Joseph Day could be a guy that returns to the Chargers, played a season there, played a lot of seasons in California, played for the Rams, the Chargers, the 49ers, so knows his way around the state. But even, I believe, at 34 years old, still getting after it, is still a solid player. First three picks for them, first round, 22nd overall. This is a sprint the card in if he's on the board. Penn State guard Olajuwon Owane. Second round, 55th overall, yet again, Auburn center Connor Lew. And then third round, 86th overall, Texas Tech interior defensive lineman Skylar Gill Howard. Now, the reason I decided to go with this, there were some more nose tackle body types on the board, like Dante Corleone or Dominic Orange. Skylar Gill Howard is more of that 6'1", 290-pound, three techniques, more athletic guys. The reason I went in this direction is They've got Jamari Caldwell from Oregon last year. I believe he's 6'1", 340 pounds, and he's definitely more of that nose tackle style. So that would make, I think Skylar Gale-Howard makes a lot of sense schematically, body type wise, next to Jamari Caldwell. Next up, the Kansas City Chiefs, and it was a disappointing season for Kansas City. Three biggest needs for me: edge, safety, and running back. They have the worst cap situation in the league right now. They're negative $55 million in cap space, and so we'll see how they work around that. They've got some money coming off the books, but they're certainly going to have to restructure some contracts. And so really had to go budget shopping in free agency with some of their targets. Looked at two edge rushers. Commanders edge Drake Jackson was the guy coming out of USC that I liked. Hasn't really panned out, but I think he's still worth a swing. Kind of the same thing with Cowboys edge Sam Williams. A safety that I looked at, Texans safety MJ Stewart started a decent amount of games, played a lot of snaps for the Texans in 2025. Could be a solid budget option. And then 49ers running back Brian Robinson. My thought process with this is maybe he goes the Javonte Williams track, or maybe he goes the Rico Dowdle track, and has kind of that nice second win to his career. Still, I think worth a cheap contract there. First three picks for me: first round, 9th overall, Auburn edge Keldrick Falk. For me, I think they've got to move on from this stylistic edge that they keep looking for, these bigger edge setters that aren't refined pass rushers. So David Bailey has been a guy that I've been mocking to them in this position, but he was off the board. Keldrick Falk is the guy that I think is a better pass rusher than some people give him credit for, and certainly the analytics give him credit for, but he's still definitely raw as a pass rusher. Now, really good run defender, might be the best run defending edge in this class. Great length, has the tools to eventually be a good pass rusher, but I just don't think he's the pass rusher that the Chiefs need now. Second round, 40th overall, Toledo safety Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. Really awesome player to watch. And then third round, 74th overall, Emmett Johnson is a guy that I really like, the running back out of Nebraska. Has the speed, has the strength, has the low center of gravity when he gets ready to take on contact. So really like him out of Nebraska. And closing this out with the Las Vegas Raiders, three biggest needs: obviously quarterback, guard, and offensive tackle. For me, the reason center isn't, I would move Jackson Powers Johnson to center. He played that in college. Why is he playing guard for the Raiders? Play him at center. Free agency targets, they've got a bunch of cap space, $92 million. At quarterback, we obviously know who they're taking in the draft, so I just went with some backup options in free agency. I could look at a guy like Commanders quarterback Marcus Mariota. He had a stint in Vegas. Could bring him back as a backup. And then Chargers quarterback Trey Lance could be a solid backup as well. Looking at the guard position, Jets guard Elijah Vera-Tucker is a guy that I would target, as well as Bills guard David Edwards. And then some of the tackles that we haven't talked about in free agency, Colts tackle Braden Smith. Really like him at right tackle. DJ Glaze just is not it at right tackle. And then neither is Stone Forsythe. Hopefully for them, Colton Miller is healthy at left tackle. Really, really good player. But another guy at right tackle that I like, Giants right tackle Jermaine Illuminor, had a stint with the Raiders as well. Has been a solid player for the Giants, so could bring him back on a decent deal. First three picks for them, though: first round, first overall. We all know it's the most obvious pick in the draft. Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza won the Heisman, won the national championship, has the arm, has the size, has the pocket feel, has the processing, even has some athleticism to him. He's really got all you could want. To me, has the just elite accuracy to any level of the field. The best back shoulder thrower that I've seen outside of Aaron Rodgers. Really, just an all-around excellent quarterback, and I hope they build that situation up around him to give him the best chance to succeed. Second round, 36th overall. Really, really like Clemson offensive tackle Blake Miller. Really like his athletic traits. Has improved the anchor as well. He's gotten stronger, so really excited to see what he can do at the next level. And then in the third round at 67th overall, Texas A&M guard Chase Pasantis. Again, this is the same thing with him. If he's on the board in the third round for a team that needs a guard, you sprint that card in. And that does it for this AFC offseason plans, positional breakdowns, whatever you want to call it. That does it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, if you guys wouldn't mind to go down below, drop a like, drop a comment, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Again, that would just let us know that you're enjoying the content, and we'll continue to bring content like this to you throughout the draft season. Thank you guys again for watching. We'll see you guys next time.